All right, we are live. Dorea Gardner, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Sabrina. It's exciting. It's
It
my first live.
is, ooh, thank you for letting me be the first. I'm honored. How exciting. We're gonna cover a lot today. We're gonna talk about things that are uncomfortable. And part of the reason I'm so excited that you're gonna be joining us today is because you've always let me ask these really tough questions. And you have such a vast experience. You've worked at HP, you've worked at Cisco, you've worked in Meraki, in the SP side. You are now the highest ranking female at Ava Security. You have such a vast background, but that's just the work side of it. And we'll kind of dig into that in a minute. But for those who don't know you or just kind of know you a little bit, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, that's the work side. So Fortune 500 to startups and all the things in between. I live right now just outside of Denver, Colorado. And I have two little girls. One is going to turn 10 actually on Friday. And I have a 4-year-old as well. And we're here with my husband. And we love to travel and cook and all that good stuff. And yeah.
Yeah. I think one of these days we're going to have to touch on what is it like to be a working mom right now? Because I don't know if it's ever been more difficult. Maybe, but kudos to you. And I'm excited to kind of dive in because I've been sort of part of this, evolution of Ava and known a little bit about your own evolution as you grow as a female in tech, as a leader, and even kind of growing into yourself. We've had a lot of these conversations, how you get more comfortable with who you are and where you're going and what you want. And that's so exciting and empowering because I think we're all in that phase, regardless of what level you are as a leader, regardless of your gender or anything else, any other variable. And I think there's something very relatable to that. And so, one of the things that we've talked about offline are these sort of what you call the life expanding moment. And to me, that just sounds so big. What do you mean life expanding moment? So tell me a little bit about that. What does that mean?
Yeah, I categorize like certain moments in my life, like you said, as world expanding, life expanding moments. And for me, those were moments in time where like the glass ceiling that we self construct by limiting ourselves and saying, okay, this is the most I'm ever going to make, or this is the highest I'm ever going to go, or this is the smartest I'm ever going to be. Those things just get broken. And there's a couple of those. I'll give you some examples, right? I remember when I first relocated from Albuquerque, New Mexico to San Francisco Bay Area to take the job at Meraki, I was sitting down with one of the top reps and he said to me, how much do you want to make this year? And I was like, what? Like I didn't really talk about money much before that. And so I was kind of taken aback and I, shot out a number. I was like, I don't know, I'd be really excited to make, $150,000 or something. That would be huge for me. And he was like, no, 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 think bigger. Like you're thinking too small. You can make 250, you can make 300, like you can make whatever you want to make in this role. And for me, I was just like, wait, is this real? And so that was kind of the first one where I started to start to think beyond six figures being meaning like I made it, right? And there's another moment where I had interviewed for a couple of inside sales management positions and I was offered a position and that was kind of the predetermined path that I thought I was supposed to be on, but I really wanted to go into field sales. I wanted to get out, I wanted to be in front of people and travel and manage large customers. And the leader that I had at the time that offered me the inside sales position actually said to me, he said, this is yours if you want it. You're qualified, you'll do a great job, but I kind of feel like your heart is over here and telling you want to go to the field. So you can say no if you want to. And like, as crazy as it sounds, that was the first time anyone had kind of given me permission to stray from that predetermined path, right? Like silly that I needed permission per se, but it got me thinking. And so I did turn it down. I had no backup offer from a field job, but I went after that 100% and ended up getting an amazing opportunity just a few weeks later. So those are some examples of what that looks like. And even now at Ava, right? I've had the opportunity to speak with a number of our board members that have, run global organizations. Rick Snyder, he ran that at Cisco. And just the fact that we're in constant communication and that he's now coaching me and that I have that ability to mentor with somebody like that has been a world expanding moment. So they just keep coming.
You kind of I don't know, inadvertently glossed over some massive things. One of the things that sticks out to me the most was first, you don't have to take a chartered path. There is no one right direction. And I don't know if that's a new thing because it's 2022 and we're like, screw it. We're charting our own path. Or if there's always kind of been this allowance and we've never really seen it for what it is. I was a behavioral analyst. I was a litigant. I was a corporate attorney. And I keep running into these situations. A good friend of mine is over at GCP and she was an attorney as well, and now is leading a whole different area of strategy and what you're doing, kind of taking a step back, and saying, this is my path. This is what I'm going to do. I think it takes an enormous amount of trust in yourself. And I think to the second point that you brought up, and I just want to make sure we highlight it, I don't want it to be glossed over, was the permission to say no. And I think as much as you understand what you want, it's important to understand what you don't want. As you kind of start to navigate, okay, this is what makes sense for me in my career or for me and my family, or frankly, for me and my team. I don't think this is only applicable to one sort of piece of our lives.
Yeah.
And honestly, even in our own conversations, as I see Ava is growing and your team is growing massively and the kinds of things that you're doing. I mean, you just announced, by the way, that you had 300% revenue growth, 500% ARR. Obviously, there must have been a massive shift in sort of how you're approaching things, what you're saying yes to, and maybe even what you're saying no to. Does that kind of translate from your personal life and these sort of life expanding moments to work and how you're evolving at Ava?
Yeah, I think so. I think that when you get really clear on what it is you do want, like you said, it also helps you get clear on what you don't want. So, as an example of how that might translate into Ava, you know, I've gotten really clear on what types of partners are really understanding Ava, and we've gotten really strategic and high touch with those partners, right? Instead of just signing up everybody that possibly expresses interest. We're not a huge team, right? But we are growing very fast. And so how do we make the most of what we have, and how do we show up and provide a different experience such that they understand, who we are, what we're about, and that we're there for their best interest and for the best interest of their client. And so it does get really important to cut through the noise just in general when you're at a startup and you're growing so fast, because there's a million things coming at you all the time. So being able to get really specific on what's most important at that moment in time.
So I want to make this a little bit more actionable and tactical because I think we talk about sort of doing things differently and approaching the channel differently. And obviously, this is something I'm very passionate because we support a lot of the channel, from all kinds of sides, from an engineering side, from sales side, from a marketing side, from an alliance side. You know, tell us, talk to us a little bit about what are some of those tactical things that you're doing differently and what's working. And honestly, if you're willing to share, what's not working.
Yeah, it's a good question. We've tried lots of things, right? We're kind of in a fail forward, fail fast culture where it's like, let's try it. If it doesn't work, move on and learn something from it. So some of the things that we've done, especially like early on when travel wasn't as much as it was today, we did a series of webinars. I think everybody did. We had mixed bag success. What we started to do instead of just general webinars was trying to make more experiential events. So even if it was virtual, how can we make it an experience? How do we give customers and partners something new that they haven't done already, right, while they're at home? But also we are showing up. So partners and customers that want to see us, we are there and we're in person. We're a very customer facing organization as much as we can be today. And I think that's given us a little bit of an unfair advantage, if I'm being frank. A lot of companies still aren't traveling or just starting to again. And we've been received with open arms. People are very grateful to see us. They're excited. I'm getting, oh my gosh, I haven't seen anyone in 18 months. This is amazing. So simple things like that, back to the basics, getting in front of people. And we've had a lot of success in the one to few, right? Where we can be very hands-on, we can make things very tailored. We still get lots of folks, but it's high quality conversations.
And if I can add, because
Too.
I always got something to say, if I can add, just in our own interactions, how you've been so focused on the partner's business. Does this fit with what we're trying to do? Does this actually fit with the channel's business? Let's go
Yeah.
really deep into it. And the other thing that you do and your team, I don't know if I'll give Rick Snyder credit for this, but maybe, yeah, maybe. The other thing that you really do is you ask questions. I think it's so easy to get stuck with the mindset that we know everything, that what we know remains true. Things evolve and change. And that means the channel, it means technology, it means business, it means everything, right? So you're very willing to say, and you've done this. Hey, team, go back. I want you to vet out, does this really make sense for these partners?
Yeah.
Even though they might be our largest partners or our most, our rapid growth partners or our strategic partners, whatever it might be, you're very much focused on understanding their business first. In every conversation we've had, that always comes up first. And then you bring up Ava. And it's
Yeah.
just a very interesting, because I have a perspective that I get to see how many different organizations approach their channel. So I would say out of all the things that I see you're doing right, you are so focused on making sure that you truly understand their business, what's important, what's working for them, and then you try to see, does this make sense, for Ava?
Yeah. Thank you. I think that's a good point. It can be really easy to pull from prior experiences and say, oh, this is how we did it here. This is how we did it here. And so certainly there is part of that that makes the job easier because I can cut through a little bit of the noise and know what has worked and pull some of the best of all of the worlds. But I think it's an Ava cultural thing in general, right? It's not just me. It goes all the way up to the executive leadership. Anytime we're making major changes from product, pricing, process, programs, it's always go ask the channel community first, poll the partners, ask your trusted partners, is this going to work for them? Is it going to resonate well? Is it going to be good for their clients? And then let's bring that feedback in and take it into consideration whenever we're considering a major change. So that I think is different from what I've seen before, and it's been vastly valuable.
Yeah, because you're pulling in all of these different pieces of information. You're still relying a lot on your own knowledge set, which is important in your experience, but you're pulling in, advisors, you're pulling your partners to say, this is a change we're looking at making in the future. Does this make sense for your business? And having those, real candid conversations. And I wanted to highlight that because we talk about failing forward. We talk about failing fast. I mean, that's been around for a minute, but what does that actually mean, especially as we're, reinventing what this new normal is? And how do you sort of fail fast while, the topic of this live, while securing your own value? Because I think sometimes when we fail, that's when we start to question our own value, whether it's as an organization, as a person. Again, I don't think that a lot of these concepts are necessarily isolated. I think they apply kind of across the
Right.
board. So do you have any words of wisdom? Do you have any guidance for, okay, yes, you're going to fail fast. And this is coming from an admitted German perfectionist. So I will own it right off the bat. I'll take all that, on. How do you fail fast? How do you fail forward while still securing your value and kind of knowing what that value is?
Yeah, this is hard for me too, right? It's taken me a lot of time to be sort of somewhat comfortable stretching myself and putting myself in those positions where I know failure is an option. But I'm going to actually switch it back to thinking about what's really important to you. And the only reason I've become more comfortable with that concept is because of the culture of the company that I work for and the safety that my team has provided me. Right, with Rick Hill as my general manager, and that's one of the things he said to me. And when I first started, I kind of came forward with ideas and business plans over and over and over again, and I was trying to prove the same thing 6 different ways. And he said, "Just go." Right, just go. Trust yourself. I trust you. I hired you to do a job. Go figure it out. If it doesn't work, we'll try something different. Like there's nothing you can mess up that bad, right? So having that
Yeah.
culture of trust, that openness, that backup, knowing that, if it's not perfect, my, job isn't on the line. I think that's so important. And so when you want to put yourself in that position to stretch and feel comfortable in those positions, I think finding a place where that culture is invited is super important.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, I'm just kind of hearing these overlaps of some of these, sort of big life defining moments, these big moments in your life have been when you've given yourself that kind of allowance to make a few mistakes or, maybe miss out on what people might think of as big opportunities and for you to go, you know what? No, that's not right for me right now. Um, Aligns with what you're saying right now and what is helping you be successful, which is being very focused on what's going to drive the most amount of value, what makes the most amount of sense, even if it's understanding that there might be some failure along the way. And that's terrifying for
Yeah.
companies, for people. I don't think that's a gender specific thing. I think it's harder to talk about. And I applaud you for talking about that, especially as a leader, because I think we're so terrified of saying, you know what, I don't actually have all the answers. I have
Yeah.
some of them and I can find people who have the rest and I know I'm going to get it right, but I individually don't necessarily always have the answer. And I think there's a lot of value in that, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. I saw an article today and I didn't read the whole thing, but the synopsis was a parent, if they told their child, I think it was like a 4-year-old, I don't know something, but like, let's go figure it out. The child was more willing to continue to learn from that parent. Whereas if the parent gave the incorrect information, but, spoke with conviction even, and then was later disproven, then the child kind of lost trust in that parent's authority and didn't want to learn from them anymore. Um, so it's just interesting that you mentioned that. I've always been willing to say, I don't know, but I'll go find out versus like just making something up, because I think there's no quicker way to lose credibility, right? So I would prefer to maintain credibility and say, I don't know and fail and go figure it out than make something up, I think.
I love when behavioral science proves me right. That
There you
just,
go.
as a former behavioral analyst, I appreciate you saying that because I think there's so much validity into this. And a big part of the reason why I studied behavior for so long is because there's a lot of science that backs this up.
Yeah.
And I think organizations right now, in fact, I just wrote a piece for Forbes on this very thing. How do brands how do they adjust when they make a mistake? We've all seen them, whether it's a restaurant that, use salmonella laced, lettuce, or whether it's an organization that maybe had a product fail and didn't, kind of turn out the way they anticipated or whatever it might be, an acquisition that maybe didn't work out. How do you project or show your value in the face of failure?
Yeah.
Because I think so often we think if we failed, that's it. That's the
Right.
end. And I think it's actually not. That's just the beginning.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's another interesting topic I've been chatting with some folks about is just I tend to err on the side of, over transparency. And that's a lot of times with partners and, going back to if they ask for stuff, I'll tell them if we're not going to build it, but we'll integrate, right? Always taking in feedback and adding things. But when you think about dealing with a massive failure or, maybe you have an issue with a customer or a partner and they're really upset, um, it is just the beginning, right? It's how you handle that, the moments following that, that really defines that relationship. You can throw your hands up and give up and say, like, this is not salvageable. Or you can kind of come in head on, listen, right? Understand where they're coming from. They might yell because it might be their job on the line because of your product's failure or whatever it is. But if you can come back with a solution, and you prove your value in that moment, that you're willing to work with them as a partner, truly as a partner, then you earn so much trust in that moment, right? Even when I was in sales, the biggest cases of, support cases that were the most problematic, when they turned around, those became like my biggest advocates, right? Those customers became champions. A lot of them are still friends of mine today. I call them my customer mentors, right? I call them and I say, hey, like, what do you think about this? Where do we fit in the market? And so you establish trust and credibility by, being willing to address those things.
What a way to end. I mean, What a way to end, because that's exactly it. How do you secure your value as a person, as an organization, as whatever it might be, a unit, a team? Um, build trust. Build trust by being overwhelmingly curious, honest, and willing to make failures, ask those questions. So, Dorea, thank you. This is I always say this, but it's so true. These are just open conversations that happen to be recorded. And I just so value, because this is you. This is just such a transparent conversation. And I value that you're willing to do that. So thank you.
Back to stretching, right? Putting myself in uncomfortable situations.
Exactly, exactly. So where can people find you? If people aren't familiar with you, is there a place they can find you, or any resources that you want to leave behind?
Yeah, I'm always willing to, have conversations. So feel free to connect with me here on LinkedIn. I love to mentor, chat about the industry, have lunch, whatever works for you. And then sort of a new thing as we're talking about purposeful discomfort and, just learning to figure things out, as I've been on TikTok, just posting little, 30-second, 15-second snippets around career development and the industry and stuff like that. So feel free to check that out and give me feedback. It's just at Dorea Gardner there.
And we've even got a little viral video too you were talking about, and some series coming up. So I love that you do that. It's incredibly terrifying for me. So
Yeah.
the fact that you're willing to put yourself out there is inspiring, right? That's sort of the art behind the subtle brag is, I did this, you can do it too. So Dorea, thank you. We are so excited to see what's ahead.
Thanks, Sabrina.
All
Nice to
right.
see you.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.